I am Reed. I am 27, just an average dude. I've made tons of money mistakes in my 20s, and now I want to share everything I've learned to help you take control of your finances and your life. All right, so depression is a thief, plain and simple. It steals a lot of stuff from us, and two of the things it likes to take the most are energy and motivation. I know this because I have been there. I have spent entire weeks just lying on my couch, staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the things I should be doing, but my body just would not move. And the craziest part is I actually wanted to do stuff. I wanted to clean my apartment. I wanted to go to the gym. I wanted to see my friends, but something between my brain and my body just got lost. Like there was this invisible wall I could not get through. And for the longest time, I thought that meant I had no motivation. I would beat myself up about it. I would call myself lazy. I would tell myself I just needed to try harder. But that was not the problem at all. The problem was I had plenty of motivation. I just had zero energy. And those are two completely different things. Let me break this down because understanding the difference changed everything for me. Energy is your ability to do something. It is the fuel in your tank. It is the physical and mental capacity to get up and take action. Motivation is your desire to do something. It is the feeling that something is worth doing. You can have one without the other. Trust me, I have been on both sides. There were times when I had tons of energy, tons of capacity to do stuff, but I could not find a single thing that felt worth doing. Nothing felt enjoyable, nothing felt meaningful. I would just pace around my apartment feeling restless and empty. That is low motivation with high energy. It is a weird feeling, and then there were times when I really wanted to do things. I wanted to get my life together. I wanted to make progress, but I felt like I was running on empty. Like I had a to-do list a mile long and every item on it felt like climbing a mountain. That is low energy with high motivation. Two different problems, two different solutions. So the first thing I want you to do is figure out which one you are dealing with. Are you lacking the desire to do things, or are you lacking the physical and mental capacity to execute? Be honest with yourself, because the fix for one is not the same as the fix for the other. And if you mix them up, you are going to waste a lot of time and energy trying the wrong things. Let me start with energy because honestly, this is the bigger problem for most people, and it is the more complicated one to fix. There are so many reasons why you might not have energy. I am going to cover what I think are the 5 most common reasons, and this is definitely not an exhaustive list, but it is where I would start if I were you. Number 1, and this is the big one, the most important thing I can tell you about energy is sleep. I know you have heard this a million times. I know it sounds boring. I know you want a hack or a shortcut or some supplement that fixes everything, but there is no substitute for sleep. None. I do not care how much coffee you drink. I do not care what kind of mindset you have. I do not care if you listen to affirmations all night. Nothing replaces what sleep does for your body and your brain. It is just not possible. Almost everybody needs somewhere between 7.5 and 8.5 hours of sleep per night to feel and function optimally. Now, you might be used to less than that. You might think you are one of those people who only needs 5 hours. But let me tell you something, I thought the same thing for years. I would brag about how little sleep I needed, like it was a badge of honor. But the truth is I was just running on fumes. I was adapted to less sleep, but that does not mean it was what I needed. It just means my body had gotten used to functioning under non-ideal circumstances. There is a big difference. So here's what I did and what I would recommend you do too. Pick an 8-hour window of your day and designate that as your sleep time. It does not matter what time this window is. If you are a night owl and you want to sleep from 2 a.m. to 10 a.m., go for it. If you are an early bird and you want to sleep from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., that is fine too. The time does not matter as long as it fits your lifestyle and your obligations. But during that 8-hour period, there are only 2 things you are allowed to do. You can be asleep or you can be trying to go to sleep. That is it. No scrolling on your phone, no watching television, no reading exciting books, no working, just sleep or trying to sleep. If you are doing anything else during that 8-hour window, you are not spending your time correctly if your goal is to have more energy. Now, I know sleep can be frustrating. Trust me, I know. I have struggled with insomnia on and off for like half my life. I know what it feels like when the most stressful part of your day is getting into bed. I know what it feels like when you are lying there staring at the ceiling, watching the hours tick by, and feeling more anxious with every minute that passes. I get it sucks, but that does not change the reality that you need sleep if you want energy. There is no way around it. One thing that helped me a ton was creating a wind down routine. About 30 to 60 minutes before my sleep window, I start preparing for bed. I turn down the lights, I put my phone away, I do something calming, like reading a fiction book or stretching or just sitting quietly. The reason this matters is because when you are awake and alert and doing things, your brain is in what is called beta wave production mode. That is the state where you are focused and active and stimulated. But when you are getting ready for sleep, your brain needs to shift into alpha wave mode, which is more relaxed and calm. If you stay busy and active right up until the moment you get into bed, you are basically trying to skip alpha mode and jump straight into sleep. That does not work well. You end up passing out instead of actually falling asleep, and your sleep quality suffers even if you get enough hours. You wake up feeling groggy and confused and grumpy. I used to do this all the time. I would be watching YouTube or playing video games until midnight and then just collapse into bed, and I wondered why I never felt rested. So please try the wind down routine. It makes a huge difference. Number 2 is food. I know this is another boring basic one, but it matters so much. You need to eat 3 decent quality meals per Dalton Y and probably a couple snacks in between. And just like with sleep, you want to eat at roughly the same times every day. Your body runs on calories, which literally means caloric energy. It is a source of fuel for your body and your brain. If you are even mildly malnourished, you are not going to feel energetic. It is that simple. But here's something I did not realize for a long time. Overeating can also make you low energy. When you eat a huge amount of food, your body has to divert extra blood flow to your digestive system to process all that food. That means less blood flow is going to your brain. That is why you feel groggy and sleepy after a big meal. It is not the turkey at Thanksgiving. It is not the tryptophan. It is the fact that you just ate way too much food and your body is desperately trying to process it. So moderate-sized meals spread throughout the day is the way to go. 3 meals, a couple snacks, keep your energy as stable as possible. Now I want to be real with you for a second. I know these first 2 tips sound boring. I know they sound like stuff your mom would tell you. But here is the thing. When I was depressed and struggling with energy, these were the first things to go out the window. I would stay up late because I did not want to deal with tomorrow. I would eat junk food or skip meals because I did not have the energy to cook, and then I would wake up feeling even worse and the cycle would continue. It took me a long time to realize that sleep and food are not optional. They are the foundation. If you are not taking care of those 2 things, nothing else is going to help much. Number 3 is caffeine. I know this one hurts. I love coffee. I really do. But let me tell you the truth about caffeine. In the short term, it gives you energy. It increases blood flow to your body and brain and gives you that jolt. But there is always a price to pay later. When you use caffeine, your body and brain are running on overdrive. Maybe they go from 100% to 120%, but when you push something to run on overdrive, there is a compensatory period where it has to run below normal capacity to recover. So if you are a heavy caffeine user, especially early in the day, you will probably notice that 6 or 7 or 8 hours after your first cup, you start to crash. That is because you went from 120% down to 100 and then eventually down to 80%. And that is when you get that groggy mid-afternoon feeling. So you have 2 options at that point. You can power through it or you can consume more caffeine. If you consume more caffeine in the afternoon or evening, you go back into overdrive mode again. But now you are going to mess up your sleep because caffeine stays in your system for well over 12 hours. When you try to fall asleep with caffeine in your system, you either have insomnia or you fall asleep, but your sleep quality is terrible because the caffeine keeps you out of the deeper stages of sleep. So even if you get 8 hours of sleep, it is not good sleep. You are basically having a series of connected naps instead of actually resting. I used to be the guy who would drink coffee at 6 p.m. and then go to bed at 10 and think I was fine, but I was not fine. I was just surviving. When I finally cut back on caffeine and stopped drinking it, after noon my energy levels got so much more stable throughout the day. It was not easy, but it was worth it. Number 4 is alcohol and marijuana. I am going to group these together because they have similar effects on energy. Alcohol messes with your sleep quality even if you fall asleep easily. It also takes blood flow away from your brain because your body prioritizes metabolizing the alcohol. That is why you feel groggy and not yourself during and after drinking, and marijuana interacts with your sleep receptors and causes a lot of fatigue and grogginess. Look, I am not saying you can never use these substances. I am not your dad. But if you are struggling with low energy and you are using alcohol or THC regularly, you need to take an honest look at whether they are helping or hurting. For me personally, cutting back on drinking was one of the best things I did for my energy levels. I still have a beer sometimes with friends, but I do not use it as a way to unwind anymore because I know it just makes me feel worse the next day. Number 5 is physical activity. This one sounds counterintuitive, I know. You are telling me to use energy when I already do not have enough. That makes no sense. But hear me out. Physical activity is like an energy investment. You spend a little bit of energy now, but you get a lot more back later. When you go for a 20-minute walk, your blood flow improves throughout your body, including to your brain. Your brain works better all day long. You feel more alert and focused. It creates a net increase in energy, even though there is a temporary deficit during the walk. The key is not to overdo it. Do not go run a marathon on your first day. Start small, a 10-minute walk, a few stretches. Something easy. Then gradually build up. I started with just walking around my block, and honestly, some days I could barely do that, but I kept at it, and over time it got easier and my energy levels went up. So those are my 5 tips for energy, sleep schedule, and wind down routine. Regular meals, not too much, not too little. Watch your caffeine intake, especially later in the day. Be honest about alcohol and marijuana, and do some physical activity even when you do not feel like it. Now let me talk about motivation, because this one is trickier, and I think a lot of people misunderstand it here, is the thing I learned the hard way. Motivation is not a mechanism to get you started on something. It is a resource to sustain action that you have already begun. Let me say that again. Motivation keeps you going. It does not get you going. That was a huge realization for me. The reason you feel motivated to do things you already do regularly is because your brain has data on those things. Your brain knows how hard they are and how good they feel. So when you think about doing them, your brain does a quick calculation and says, yeah, this is worth it. The reward is greater than the effort. But when you try to start something new or something you have not done in a long time, your brain does not have that data. You think about going for a walk, but you have not gone for a walk in months. Your brain does not know how hard it will be or how good it will feel, so it just says, I do not know. And when your brain says, I do not know, it rarely says, let us go for it. It usually says, let us stay on the couch and do nothing. So if you wait until you feel motivated to start something new, you will be waiting forever. You have to start with something else. You have to use willpower. You have to just force yourself to do it, even though it does not feel good or worthwhile. And then after you have done it a few times, your brain collects data and it can make a better decision. Sometimes your brain will say, okay, I actually like this. This is worth it. And that is where motivation comes from. And sometimes your brain will say, nope, hate this, not worth it, try something else. And that is okay too. That is actually a good outcome. Because now, I have tried so many things that I thought I would like and ended up hating: journaling, meditation, running yoga, cold showers. All of these things are supposed to be good for you, but some of them just did not work for me. And that is fine. Everyone is different. There is no blueprint for life or mental health that works for everyone. You have to run your own experiments. You have to try things and see what sticks. 2 practical tips for improving motivation. 1, find ways to increase the reward of an activity. If you are trying to go for a walk, but you do not want to try listening to a podcast or calling a friend or going to a nice park, instead of just walking around your neighborhood, small changes can make a big difference in how rewarding something feels. 2, find ways to decrease the effort. If you cannot get yourself to go for a 20-minute walk, try 10 minutes. If 10 is too much, try 5. Keep lowering the effort threshold until action starts to happen. Something is always better than nothing. 5 minutes of walking is infinitely better than 0 minutes of walking. Do not let perfectionism get in the way of progress. I want to be real with you about something else. When I was in my deepest depression, I had 0 motivation and 0 energy. I could not even get out of bed to shower. I would lie there for hours just feeling like a failure because I knew I should be doing things, but I could not make myself do them. And the shame spiral just made everything worse. If you are in that place right now, I want you to know that I get it. I have been there. And the way out is not about trying harder or being tougher on yourself. It is about being patient and strategic. Start with the basics. Fix your sleep, eat something. Take a tiny walk, do one small thing, and then another. Do not try to fix everything at once. And here is another thing nobody tells you. Recovery is not linear. You will have good days and bad days. You will think you are getting better, and then you will have a week where you can barely function again. That is normal. That does not mean you are failing. It means you are human. The goal is not to never have bad days again. The goal is to have more good days than bad days and to know how to handle the bad days when they come. I have built so many little systems for myself over the years. On days when I have energy but no motivation, I know I need to find something that feels worth doing. I call a friend, I try a new hobby, I change my environment. On days when I have motivation but no energy, I know I need to conserve and invest. I take care of my sleep and food, and I do a little bit of movement, but I do not push myself too hard. And on days when I have neither, I just focus on survival. I do the bare minimum. I eat something, I drink water, I try to get outside for 5 minutes, and I remind myself that this too shall pass because it always does. Look, I am not a doctor or a therapist or a life coach. I am just a normal guy who has been through some hard times and figured out what works for him. Maybe some of this will work for you too. Maybe none of it will. But I hope at least it gives you some ideas to try, because the worst thing you can do when you are struggling with depression is nothing. Try something, anything, fail. Try again, fail better. That is how we figure this stuff out. Thank you for sticking with me through this one.